Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution? Or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical sexologist Dr. Martha Tara Lee will explore all these and more on Eros Evolution on OMTimes Radio.
Welcome to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. This is Dr. Martha Tara Lee. I'm a clinical sexologist based in Singapore, and my company is called Eros Coaching. That's EROS coaching.com. I am Singaporean Chinese. I'm based in Singapore, and I have with me Rebecca Lowrie today, and she is actually in the UK. So in today's show, she'll be talking about empowering your erection. She is the Sexual Alchemist, and she has worked with over 2,000 men in the last 10 years and has now created a home program to help men with erection issues. She'll be talking about her new Empowering Your Erection digital program that you can do from home. Whether you are experiencing erectile dysfunction or just want to gain confidence with your erection, this program is for you. Rebecca is passionate about helping men explore and expand who they are as sexual beings so they are fully empowered in all areas of their lives. More about Rebecca. Rebecca Lowrie, the Sexual Alchemist, is a catalyst for deep transformation and sexual awakening. Using her innate, intuitive sense of sexuality, along with formal training and years of personal exploration, Rebecca is able to help you connect with your sexuality and your sexual power in deep and mysterious ways. Sexual alchemy sessions and programs will awaken a deep aspect of your sexual self that you have never experienced before, so that it will flow through you for your continued pleasure, health, well-being, and expansion. So more about Rebecca by going to her website, thesexualalchemist.com. So welcome, Rebecca, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, Martha.
Hi. So we've been connected for quite a while now, and I think we are in some of the common groups, like I think Urban Tantra, is that right?
That's right, yeah, Urban Tantra.
So could you tell us a little bit more about your training besides Urban Tantra?
Sure. I first came across Tantra about 11 or 12 years ago at a festival here in the UK, and I proceeded to learn from everyone I could in the UK. There's a lot of teachers here at the time who were teaching various forms of conscious sexuality or Tantra or sex-related things, and I was pretty hungry for all of it, so I went and trained with anyone I could find, and then eventually my training took me to America. I trained with Barbara Corellis in New York and with a woman called Jaylene Bennis in California, and there's been some other studies abroad, so quite a broad range.
Wonderful. And can I understand, do you only work with men?
I mostly work with men. I do see some women, some couples, and even some trans people. But over the 10 years, I'd say the majority, like maybe 95% of my clients are men.
Yeah, because, 2,000 men in 10 years is really impressive. I've been in practice for, say, I think 7 years now. And most of my coaching is basically, no touch, no nudity. And I've worked with 300 couples who have this condition called vaginismus. So I would say most of my clients would be women. So how did you come to work primarily with men?
It's interesting. When I first started doing the work, I was really working, in fact, it started with one of the teachers I was working with. She said to me while I was still kind of training, she said, at lunchtime, I want you to take this particular chap out and do a session for him. And I said, well, what do you mean? I'm a student here. And she said, no, you'll know what to do. And from that, eventually she said, now you need to have a website. Now you're in business. And it just so happened that it was men that came for sessions more often. I don't know if this is right or not. My theory on it has been that in part it's just who I'm meant to work with, and in part I think women tend to talk about their sexuality more to their friends or in groups than men do. Men often don't share their sexual issues with each other or their friends. So I don't know if maybe that's the reason why.
Yeah. Yeah, it does sound like it's a calling from how you just described it. And so what exactly do you do when you work with men?
It really varies a lot, which is it's something I really love about the work. I find that it changes over time, but certainly, the men that come here come for a variety of different reasons. So some of them come because something physical isn't working, like they're having difficulty getting or maintaining erection, or they want to learn to last longer or to separate orgasm from ejaculation. Some men come because they have little or no experience or no recent experience of their bodies or intimacy or pleasure, and they want a safe, experimental, almost practice space to gain some confidence and to discover kind of who they are. And they come for lots of other reasons. I mean, I have a lot of men who come because they've heard either of Tantra or they have a intuitive sort of knowing that their sexuality can be more than they've been taught, because, mostly they haven't been taught much about it anyway. And so they sense that there could be more to it. And often what I'm teaching is presence. It always comes back to that no matter what else we're doing. So they come here for a lot of reasons. I'd say the classics, if I had to pull some things out, would be erection issues and wanting to last longer. But, the reason people come goes in phases. Currently, I have a lot of men coming who either need to find their power, whatever that means to them, or are wanting to own their fantasies, who have fantasies and have felt shame around them for a long time and are only just realizing that actually that's a beautiful part of who they are. But that's kind of new, that's a new thing that's coming up recently.
So you also do Skype coaching for men as well?
I do, yes. Yeah, I started doing that a few years ago. I was adamant at first that I could only help people or men if they were here with me in person. And I had a few requests to work via Skype, and I gave it a go. And, it works just fine. It's different, obviously. It's different. But a lot of the work that I do is energy work, which works via Skype really beautifully, or breath work, and I can guide that. So, it works better than I ever expected it would.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So specifically, for those people who are not clear about the differences, do you actually do touch on nudity in your work?
Yeah, if it's appropriate to what that person's asking. So there's never a set thing that I do, and I never make an assumption. And obviously, I would never expect someone to do something they weren't comfortable with. But I would say often I'm working with the body in some way, whether that's shaking up loose patterns or rewiring neural pathways, or even getting someone to be able to receive touch in a new way. I think a lot of we hold so much. I was going to say damage, but I don't want to make it sound so traumatic. We just hold so much in our physical cells and in our body. Even, if we were told something when we were young that was seemingly at the time significant, it could be held in the body. And so often I am working with the body in some way. And if someone's comfortable with it, then there's nudity. And if not, there's always another way to work.
That's great. Yeah, we like to assume that men only come to sex coaching for titillation or for some eroticism, but really there are lots of men out there who are struggling with their sexuality, and deep down they're really shy, and it does take a lot of courage and effort for their part to even first admit that they have an issue and then seek the support that they need.
Absolutely. And I think, in our society, there's so much fear, shame, and guilt around sexuality. And if you have a problem with your knee or, you've upset tummy, you can go to your doctor and not feel shame, and you can talk to your friends about it and ask, a good osteopath. But if something's not working with your sexuality or your sexual body or your intimacy, no one talks about it. So even just to show up for a session is, like you said, very courageous.
Yeah. And also there's this whole bravado around hanging out with the boys. A lot of times they just end up doing a lot of small talk and fist thumping and not really go deep into their sexuality or their sexual issues. So
right.
I really don't know what to
same
do.
in those situations, isn't it?
Yeah. So is it more of a cultural thing that you see sometimes it's different for different cultures?
It's a really interesting question. And honestly, I've worked with people and men from all over the world, different cultures, different races, different backgrounds. And I think everyone's got some indoctrinated shame around their sexuality. It might manifest slightly differently, but it's still there. And underneath that is still this beautiful, divine, sacred being who discovers their sexuality and can blossom from it, even with all the indoctrination.
Wonderful. So we're talking with Rebecca Lowrie, and we're talking about empowering your erection. You can find out more about her by going to her website, The Sexual Alchemist. That's ALCHEMIST. You can also find her on Twitter. That's Rebecca Lowrie, LOWRIE. And we'll find out more about Rebecca and her work after this break. When you go to her website, you'll be able to sign up for her weekly newsletter and receive a free copy of her ebook, 5 Steps to Being a Better Lover Tonight.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
Hi, this is Julie Geigel.
I'm Maggie Chula.
And I'm Catherine Glass.
And we're the Psychic Angel Channelers. Join us every week here on OMTimes Radio for Angel Talk Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
The angels have heard your call and are here to help.
Are you ready to receive?
Remember your magnificence with Angel Talk Tuesday.
Dr. Kevin here, and I want to invite you every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, to join me on The Dr. Kevin Show, where we have a diversity of guests who help you step outside the box, behind the curtain, and see what a load of crap is going on in the world today, so you have more information with which to make better decisions. We'll see you there. Namaste.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the Internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business. The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. We are talking about empowering your erection today, and we are with Rebecca Lowrie. She's the Sexual Alchemist, working in creative, playful, and inspired ways. Rebecca weaves together intuition, love, and sensuality to create intimate and transformational sexual alchemy sessions and programs. She is passionate about helping people to connect with their sexuality for their own personal empowerment, joy, and pleasure, as well as helping people to expand their ideas of what they can do with their sexuality beyond just sex. She combines various forms of conscious and sacred sexuality to help people to expand their possibilities of sensuality, intimacy, and love. You can find her on the sexualalchemist.com. So coming back to the show, just wondering, Rebecca, because this show really focuses on the link between sexuality and spirituality. And you mentioned just now that some of your training is in Tantra. So what, in your opinion, is this link between sexuality and spirituality?
That's a really good question. You know, I think because I've been walking this path sort of consciously for so long that to me they're not just linked, but they're one and the same. So I was thinking about the link between them, and I almost can't even see it anymore, because to me there's not a separation. But I know that you know, for a lot of people, and before I walked this path, there was a separation. So I think, you know, I think really in most cultures, most places in the world, we've lost touch with what our sexual energy really is, and how it can really be used, and how it connects us in with everything, you know, with the matrix of life. It's life force energy. So if you think that it's the energy that creates life, that's a spiritual link, as far as I'm concerned. That's, you know, a pretty big one. Mm-hmm. You know, I think, you know, because, you know, we talked earlier about the fear and shame and guilt around sex and sexuality, and I think it's got reduced to being something that's just a physical act, or, you know, if you're lucky, maybe there's a bit of emotion in it, but it's so much more than that. You know, it's a way to feel your connection with all that is, with nature, with you know, intimacy on a much deeper level than just a bit of friction and rubbing, which is, you know, great, but there's so much more possible.
So for those people who are really trying to understand how to let sex become spiritual, what would you have to say? You know, just a little bit there.
Yeah, I think an important step for probably everyone, I don't want to be presumptuous, is to first recognize any fear, shame, or guilt, or blocks, or conditioning, or habits, or patterns that you have that get in the way of sex being an utterly amazing, magnificent experience of something that touches you really deep in your soul. You know, to first clear the stuff that's in the way, because that's all it is. There's just conditioning in the way. But other things, I think, are to trust your intuition. I meet a lot of people in my sessions that tell me they intuitively suspected there was something more to sexuality than just friction sex, but they didn't know how to find it. And I think getting present, you know, that seems to be my answer to everything at the moment. But I think we live at a time where we're distracted so easily, you know, whether it's music videos that move around really quickly, or just everything's so fast. We're online, and we're on 50 million websites at a time, and people change channels all the time, but we don't often stop and breathe and be still. And I think if you bring almost like a meditative or prayerful, I've lost the word I was going to say, way of being to your life, and then overlap that with your sexuality, your sexuality, your sex experiences are gonna have a deeper aspect to them. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think it's a practice too, you know. I think, like, I often say, when you go to the gym and you want to build biceps, you don't just go once and do a few exercises and then you're done. It's something that you have to commit to doing and practicing and learning more about it. And it's the same with learning how spirituality and sexuality are connected. It's a practice. There's self-inquiry, and there's trying different things and seeing what works for you and what works, doesn't work for you, because it's going to be different for everyone.
Okay, very good advice. So I've been busy taking notes, and I'm going to summarize a little bit. So the first tip is to recognize what's getting in the way to get real with yourself, and that involves going deep into your soul and looking at some of your conditioning. The second tip is to trust your intuition, that allow yourself to be guided, and knowing, that perhaps this is something you're curious about and you want to explore more. The third one is to get present, and that involves living life in a prayerful way. And the fourth is to commit to it as a practice, to get involved in self-inquiry, trying different things, and then eventually being able to figure out what works for them. And of course, one of the things is to maybe find a coach to help you, because then the learning doesn't have to be so steep, and because of their experience and training, they would also be able to give a lot more customized and individualized advice. So all good.
Absolutely. The other thing with getting, a coach or some help is that, sorry, there's so many things I want to say at once, is that then someone can kind of show you the way. It's not like a big mystery that you have to figure out all on your own. There's people who can say, well, try this. I tried this once. Why try this? Or I think you might like this, or this might appeal to you. Yeah,
definitely. So today's show is really focusing more about erections. Tell us more about your work around erections. I believe that there are lots of men who are really intrigued about what you have to say.
Okay. Well, as I said before, over the years, I noticed one of the top reasons that men were coming here were either difficulty with getting an erection or with keeping an erection, or confidence with their erection. And I guess I developed over the years ways that were quite effective of helping get an erection or have confidence with it or maintaining it. And after a while, earlier this year, in fact, I was thinking, how can I help more men? Not everyone can get here for a session. And so how can I help more men? And I actually felt quite compelled to write this program, which I had no idea at the time would it work, because I hadn't worked that way before. So I wrote this. It's an ebook with 4 audios, and there's 4 exercises in it based on what I have done in sessions for years. And just to be clear, what happens in sessions here is always very unique to the individual that comes. But after a while, I was seeing patterns of what worked. So I turned those patterns into the book and the audios, and then I sent it out to lots of men who had been my clients or had wanted to be clients who were having erection issues, and with a wide variety of reasons why they were having erection issues. Some of them had injuries or operations or illnesses. Some of them just randomly they were having problems, and they all came back with something positive. Some people said that they felt more confident. One man came back and told me that he'd had penetrative sex for the first time ever since doing the program, because he'd in the past hadn't been able to keep his erection long enough to do the penetrative part. And after he'd done the program 2 or 3 times, he could. So I didn't know that was possible until he told me. I mean, I knew it was possible for him to get there. I didn't know it was possible through the program.
Yeah. So this would be your first program that you created?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, when I was creating it, I was almost compelled to do it. It was like some kind of, divine something or other came through and said, write this now. And, my intention is for it to be a series. And that one came out in June, and I have another 2 that I really want to write, but other things have got in the way since. So hopefully the other 2 will come out sometime next year.
So this first program is about erections, and what are the other 2 that you are planning to launch?
The next one will be how to prolong your pleasure, because that's definitely the next the next most thing I see is men who are wanting to be able to decide when they ejaculate, if they ejaculate at all. And so how can they be in pleasure with themselves or with a partner for longer? And, there's I was going to say easy ways. I know if that's something you're struggling with, it doesn't feel like there's an easy way out, but there are things that I can write into a program that will help. And it's not so dissimilar from the Empowering Your Erection program, but a slightly different focus. And the one after that, I'm not 100% sure. It's probably going to be about separating orgasm from ejaculation, but I'm not sure. So you have to watch this space.
I like that. I like that one because that's when they really get much deeper into understanding how sexuality and spirituality can become separate, because they're not so focused on ejaculating and their erection so much after that.
Absolutely. It opens up a whole new world of possibility because people aren't taught about sex. There's a lot of men and women who think that, you do friction, and penetration, you orgasm, you ejaculate, which a lot of people think is the same thing, and then you're done. And of course, that's all great, but it's also very limiting. And so if you can learn to use your body differently and learn what your choices and options are, it opens up so much more. And like you say, then that starts to lead you to, this is a spiritual practice. I do have choices. I am more connected to everything.
So it's very, very exciting what you're sharing, because you have all these new programs that you have one, and then you're going to launch more, and these are all specifically for men. So you are definitely going to be a watcher. People need to be watching your work.
Thank you. I hope so. I hope I get these other programs out early in the year.
And you've been getting good feedback, so that's awesome. So more with Rebecca after this break, and she's on the Sexual Alchemist.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of the Inspired Parenting radio show, where every week we bring you empowering information from the diverse fields of conscious parenting, education, neuroscience, consciousness, health, and metaphysics to support you in nurturing the best in your children. So if you're interested in understanding what shapes your children's minds, spirits and hearts, join me every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and prepare to be inspired.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. You're listening to Eros Evolution on the OMTimes radio network, and you can share this show with your friends right now by sending them the link omtimes.com/mobile. Our mobile player is so advanced, it doesn't need you to download any application, just having this link. You can try it now. Your friends will love it. We are with Rebecca Lowrie, and we're talking about empowering your erection today. Just before the break, she was telling us about how she created this ebook, and it has 4 audios, and she's received really good feedback from it. She's also planning to launch 2 other programs in the months to come, including one on how to prolong pleasure, and the other probably on separating orgasm from ejaculation. So she talked about how it is easy to be able to overcome some of the challenges that men experience with regards to their sexuality. I actually happen also to have my own online training program for men with premature ejaculation. And this is what I usually tell my clients, and maybe Rebecca, you can chime in. I usually say the practices are easy. However, it takes some discipline and effort and patience. So it's not going to be a miracle pill, not like Viagra. It's not going to be something that is short term. However, over the long term, what happens is with some time and effort, they will definitely be able to see results, and they will learn a lot more about their bodies and with their sexuality in a much deeper way than they ever could with a pill. So how do you explain to your clients about these practices that you teach them, Rebecca?
It's interesting. I agree with everything you've just said. And up till very recently, my language has had quite a tantra flavor to it. And I guess you could say kind of, and I mean this kindly, a hippie woo-woo flavor to it. I talk a lot about energy, moving energy. But earlier this year, I also started to learn a bit of the science behind it. I don't yet have that language fully to use it. But what I learned is, all the stuff that you and I both do, that a lot of people in our line of work do, is working with neural pathways and working with, see, it's gone out of my head, but working actually scientifically, it's just quantum physics really that we're doing by changing the way that the brain thinks, the way that the body is programmed to react to things. You can change everything. And like I noticed before you said about it being easy to do, I think you were quoting me saying that it's easy to do, but you're right. It does take some commitment because our body, our nervous system, our energy system gets stuck in old habits and patterns and ways of doing things. And then we think that that's how we are, but actually you can reroute it all. It just takes commitment, like you said.
Yeah. So this is what I say sometimes in my work. And I could be guilty of stereotyping. I say this, men more than women are creatures of habit, and that because we are creatures of habit, we don't really want to change things that work. And when we get out of that comfort zone and we do things that are different, because it's different, then definitely we feel that it's awkward and it can even be difficult or challenging, but it doesn't mean that we cannot do it. It just takes a little bit of effort.
Absolutely. And like we said before, it takes a bit of courage. It takes some willingness to show up and try something different. A lot of people, have said, I couldn't go and see my doctor. I felt scared, or I didn't want to go and see my doctor because I didn't want to take a pill, but I didn't know what else was out there. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll say, okay, I often start with listening to someone's body, almost using my hand like a stethoscope. And, you get someone in here with their business suit and tie on, and I look at them and say, look, this works. And it's amazing to me how whatever walk of life they come from, by the time they get here, they're willing to try just about anything. Mm. And then when they see it works or they feel something different in their body, they don't ask questions. They don't need the science behind it. They're happy with the hippie woo language because they felt it. They've had an embodied experience of it working.
Mm. Yeah. It's one thing to understand something in your head. It's another to really feel it in your body.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure listeners are very curious how exactly your digital program helps with their erection.
Yes. Well, so it's in 4 parts. The first part is there's a guided meditation to get you grounded and rooted and centered and in your body. And then there's a series of questions to answer, which are to start to bring up what's going on for you. So for some people might just do it on a mental level, but it's meant to start to bring up the physiological and energy things that you're clinging on to. So there's lots of questions to answer to start for you to dig around. When did this start? How does it affect me? What might have been going on at the time it started or previous to that? What messages do I have about myself as a sexual being or my erection? And then after that, the next part is a guided energy clearing system. So there's a little bit to read. It kind of introduces it, and then they listen to the audio, which guides them kind of through an energy clearing that I would do on their body if they were here. And I did my very best to infuse that energy clearing energy into the audio as I spoke it. And apparently it is being very effective. So there's a system of, I use the chakras as a map. I didn't want to at first because I thought that might put some people off, but I find it works well, and it's all explained as you go through the audio, so you don't have to know anything about them in advance. So you go through that. I can't remember how long that one is, maybe 20 minutes or something, and then there's questions to answer after that, because I find that people don't often remember where they were when they started. Like years and years ago, I used to do therapeutic massage, and there was a man that came to see me who he was walking at a right angle. He was bent over so far, and I worked on him and his back and his body for a long time. And one day he came in, he was straight up, he was almost bouncing, and I said, "How are you?" And he said, "Oh, my back's awful." And his wife looked at him. She said, "You old codger." She said, "When you were first coming here, you were over at a right angle and you don't even remember." And I thought, wow, we don't remember. So
yeah,
so in the program, I thought I want people to be able to see their progress. So there's some questions, how does that feel today? How does that affect you? And that gives them a bit of a tracker. So when they go back and do it, they can say, oh yeah, last time I felt this and now I feel this. So after the energy clearing is a physical clearing, and it's a kind of guided, I guess it's a guided self-massage in a way, but it's quite precise about where they touch and how they touch. And it's the whole body and including the genitals as well. And that's in part to also start to help them to create a new relationship to their own body. Because I don't know if you see this, but I see a lot. If a man's been dealing with erection issues for a long time, often he then kind of either disconnects from his body or he starts to not love his body anymore. And there needs to be a new connection there, a new way of loving the body, which takes us into the last exercise, which is a nurturing self-love guided meditation where the men are focusing on connecting their heart and their genitals. So to create a new relationship for how they feel about their body, but also, I know you have a tantra background as well, so that when you come into a sexual situation, whether that's on your own or with a partner, your heart and your genitals are connected, which gives you, again, a more spiritual experience, a deeper experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there you have it, the 4 audios that Rebecca just explained to us. The first one being one where you ask yourself questions and then you get to a point of more self-realization. The second is a guided energy clearing system. And then the third one is more of a physical clearing and exploration, including why and how you touch your own genitals, and the fourth being a nurturing self-love meditation.
Right.
Awesome. And I think that's the one that I received, right? You sent me part 1 of 2 of your book, and in addition to the audio, I'm sure that there's also lots of other knowledge and information that your customers would be able to receive?
Yes, and in fact, in that book, I put a thing about In fact, when I first produced the program, I said it was for erectile dysfunction. And then what I was finding was that a lot of men were coming back and saying that they didn't have erectile dysfunction as such, but they weren't happy with their erections and they were still getting something from the program, which is why I changed it to be called Empowering Your Erection. But there's a bit in the book about erectile dysfunction and what that means, and what I don't like that term at all, you know. So there's a bit about that and how it's okay to be a sexual being with or without an erection. And there's also a bit about porn in there, because I think that you know, that's an issue in our world. So yeah, there's a lot of other things in the book besides the 4 exercises. That those are just the main things for men to do. That's kind of the program itself, but then there's a lot of other bits and pieces, like you said, information in there that back everything up.
Yeah, I didn't want people to think it was just only about the audio. You certainly put in a lot of effort into your ebook, and I haven't gone through the whole thing. That's why I haven't written the review for you. But I really do agree with everything that's already inside. And I see that it's also much more comprehensive than what people think it is. I think you also included something about diet, right?
Yes, that's right. What the one of the last parts is maintaining your erection for life. And I talked about how you need to address the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual parts of yourself. And, you know, because it's all connected, and if one bit is lagging behind, it can affect. So if you're not eating well, that can affect your erection, and it can also affect how you feel about your erection. If you need to get some exercise, you need the blood and circulation to be going and be healthy. You know, you need to get your mental and emotional state healthy about how you feel about yourself and sexuality and intimacy. If you are ashamed of all of that stuff, it could affect your erection. So really, you know, the work that the audios do is part of it, but the rest is things that you can do to the rest of your life that are good for you anyway, but are going to help your erection and help you as a sexual being overall. You know, it's quite comprehensive.
Fantastic. So I'm with Rebecca, and we're talking about erections, and this is something that a lot of people feel a lot of embarrassment and discomfort around. And I hope you are getting some value from the positive way in which we are talking about erections here on Eros Evolution. More after this break.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting to your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are and help you realize the innate potential you have to heal every aspect of your life. So come heal yourself every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, with your host, Monica Goyal. Namaste.
The name is Bond. James Bond.
No, the name is Joe. The Joe Show. And we are returning back for our 9th season here on OMTimes Radio. So tune in every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, on OMTimes.com/mobile. You can take us wherever you go. Yeah!
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram at Joy of Business or Twitter at Joy of Business, and share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business. The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
This is Eros Evolution, and we're talking about empowering your erection with Rebecca Lowrie, the Sexual Alchemist, on today's show. You can find her on thesexualalchemist.com, and you can find her on Twitter, Rebecca Lowrie, Lowrie, and also on Facebook, The Sexual Alchemist. If you go to her website, you will be able to subscribe to her newsletter, and from there you will be able to receive a free copy of her ebook, 5 Steps to Being a Better Lover Tonight. If you're interested in what we're talking about, empowering your erection, you can get her digital program on her website by going to thesexualalchemist.com/shop/. And just before break, we were talking about erections and how men are a little bit embarrassed about it. And really, she also emphasized that her program is not just about erection problems that men are facing. If you have any concerns and worries about having difficulties with your erections or inconsistent episodes where your erection sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, and you just want to have more sexual confidence, then this is also a program that you can consider. So it's not just for men with problems. This is also for men who want to have more erection confidence, I would say. Mm-hmm. Also, I feel that, sure, maybe you don't have any issues or worries about your erections, but maybe down the road you might. And this is something that you may want to take the time and effort to go into, rather than later down the road when issues does happen and then you start worrying about it. So I would say it's a little bit like more preventive than anything. And maybe Rebecca, you want to say some things about that as well?
Absolutely. I think, anytime we can bring our consciousness, our awareness, our attention to our bodies, our sexual bodies, our genitals, the parts that sometimes we don't get taught how to use or how to love, then we start to build resources. Like you say, then if something does not work or goes wrong, you've got resources to fall back on. Then, instead of feeling shame and then reinforcing that, you think, oh, well, it's not working today and that's okay. How else can I be a magnificent lover? I think one of the really important things in the program and just in general in my sessions, probably the sessions you do too, is I really encourage people to reframe their ideas of sex and sexuality. I think because we're not taught about it, and maybe porn is a little bit of a teacher these days, which is a bit of a tragedy. People think often that, there's a little bit of foreplay, then some kind of penetration happens, an orgasm happens, and that's sex. But actually, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. So if you think that for a man, let's say, if you think that the only way you can be a sexual being is to get an erection and penetrate, then you're very limited anyway. So whether you already get great erections or not, I would encourage you to find other ways to be sexual. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. I feel that with more confidence comes more freedom and more joy and playfulness. And I'm very happy that you have this program and you've put in a lot of heart and effort into it. And for those listeners who are really just thinking, okay, enough of this selling, maybe you can tell them some takeaways, maybe some exercise.
Sure. I think that the two things I always come back to breath and presence, and I'll say a little bit about those. I talked about presence a little bit before, and what I mean by that is about being really in the moment right now. So not thinking about what you have to do later or your work problems or something else, but being really present with whatever's going on. And you can practice that even when you're washing the dishes or, driving your car, well, hopefully you're doing it when you're driving your car anyway. But if you think, so one of my favorite analogies is when you're washing the dishes, you could be washing them and thinking about problems you have or how you're going to pay the bills or cursing that you have to do some housework. Or another way to do it is to bring your full-bodied presence to it and notice the sensuality of the hot water as you wash the plates and the bubbliness of the soap, and how grateful you are that you could be in service to your family, and that how grateful you are to have money to buy food to put on the plates. And as you go deep into the experience of the washing up and the sensuality of it and the purpose behind it and the service behind it, suddenly the washing up becomes a meditation or prayer. And although that might seem a bit ridiculous at first, there's actually amazing physiological things that happen to your body when you do that. So if you're doing something from a stressful place, it creates one kind of physiological reaction. If you do it from a meditative or prayerful place, it has a different reaction. So if you can practice that presence and that prayerful way of being when you're doing something as seemingly mundane as washing up, and you get the feel for how it is to do it, and then you bring that to your sex life, you have so much more choice. It's not then all about the penetration or the erection, but how am I being present with my lover? How am I being present with, his or her skin, or this tiny little bit right here on their shoulder? And it just blows open your possibilities for more sex, more spiritual sex, more connection, more intimacy. Mm-hmm. So I go on about presence a lot, but because for me, it's just the number one sex tip ever.
Yes, I definitely agree with you. I like this analogy you were using about the driving, actually, even though you just mentioned it briefly, because if we are not really truly alert to the changing road conditions, sometimes accidents can happen. So being truly present when driving is a necessity. I think a lot of people can relate with that. And also you talked about choice. When we are able to practice presence outside of the bedroom, being present moment by moment, say at work or washing dishes, for instance, then we'll be better able to apply it in the bedroom. A lot of us go into all kinds of problems when we are engaged in too much of porn. I don't mean like not any porn, like too much. Because what happens is they become so used to the visual stimulus that they kind of begin losing touch and relationship with their own bodies. And this is something that I believe both of us see again and again within our clients. Yeah. So what Rebecca just shared about presence and breath, these are two things that you can already begin practicing in your day-to-day life. It's so profound. And we just can't, begin to talk, there's just not enough time to really go into how important it is. Keep bringing your attention back to your breath, back to your body, and then being very mindful of your moment-by-moment experience in your body. These two things will already help you be much better as a lover.
That's right. And here's the beauty of breath. People say, oh, I don't know how to do breath work, or I don't know what you mean. But it's really simple. If you just, even for 2 minutes, stop and focus on your breathing. You don't have to do any kind of fancy breathing. Just notice that you are breathing for a minute. Your breath isn't in the future and it's not in the past. Your breath is in the present moment always. So if you can even just concentrate on your breath for a little bit of time, you're practicing being present. So whether that's when you're in a sexual experience or anything else, your breath is there with you in that present moment. So if you find you're off thinking about 100 other things and you want to come back to the moment, find your breath.
Great. Fantastic. So we just have a couple more minutes. Is there anything else that you would like to share or talk about, Rebecca?
Oh, there's so many things, Mother.
I know.
But, I think one thing that I feel really passionate about is I think that every single human being at their core is already a very intuitive, in-tune sexual being. It's just that we have all this conditioning and indoctrination and fear put on top of us. And sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. But I find I've never, ever had a situation where even if it took some time, I couldn't help someone to clear through what they thought, what they'd been taught or, shamed about sexuality, to get to that spark that's in everyone who we all know we are all the sacred divine being, and sexuality is a massive part of that. It's intrinsic. It's how we got here. And I think that we all have that, and we can all get back to it. We just have to find a way that works for you. It's different for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, well said. So thank you so much once again, Rebecca, for coming onto this show and talking about empowering your erection. Once again,
thank you for having me.
Thank you. You'll be able to find her on the Sexual Alchemist. Remember to check out her website, and also remember you can sign up for her weekly newsletters. So next week we will be having sex with Tamarie. She will be talking about edutainment as the most important topic of all. She brings a radical, sex-positive, intersectional, feminist, body-loving, empirically based perspective on sexuality, and she has leads for everybody to feel as enthusiastic about the topic as she is. We'll be talking about in next week's show sexuality education, sex positivity, and how this is becoming a big cultural movement. How can we begin to have a more sex positive place? And it can start from you and me. So this has been Dr. Martha Tara Lee of Eros Evolution. I'm a clinical sexologist based in Singapore. You'll be able to find out more about my work by going to eroscoaching.com. Till next week, keep having sex and have amazing sex.